Good day, fellow Virgin Islanders. I am your chairman of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. On Friday, we had a committee meeting that went on. We did about a day and a half worth of work in one day, and we're going to summarize the progress we made on your behalf. I'm here with Senate President Malone, who traveled to Washington, D.C. last Monday, and he comes back with information from the federal level that may help us also alleviate the troubles that we all are facing in the Virgin Islands. First of all, the purpose of our meeting on Friday was to get information from the key government offices so that the legislators can act in an informed manner. This is a technical area. We know people are suffering, but it's a technical solution and an economic solution in order to alleviate that suffering. It was a great success. And we have all of the information from that on our website at visenate.org. If you'd like to read the testimony of Director Hugo Hodge of the VI WAPA, or if you'd like to, or Carl Knight, or any of the testimony, you can. In addition, we opened it up to individual Virgin Islanders in the business community and private individuals to come talk about how the WAPA situation, the electrical situation, was affecting them directly. So all of that is available for you there, and we'll be hitting the high points of that here. I'd like to particularly commend Mr. Gustav James, a local Crucian engineer who came across at his own expense to St. Thomas and testified. And interestingly, he got the same information from his engineering background and looking at his own WAPA bill as the Georgetown consultants to the PSC were able to derive, giving us some confidence that we were seeing an accurate picture. What we learned from the technical side, from both Mr. Gustav James and from the consultant, was that the core of this whole issue right now is that WAPA's inefficiency is due to a significantly higher than normal heat rate. And we understand the concept of heat rate and can apply that to a solution now. The importance to us of having these meetings is to arrive at a series of measurable milestones at 3, 6, 12-month intervals, and these steps will lead to a goal of 60% renewable energy by 2025. The governor has set this goal, but I think that most of us know that there will be a changing of the guard by that time in all levels of government, and it's unfair to have a goal that is supposed to occur in 2025 without milestones on the way to make sure we really arrive at that goal. If we do nothing until 2022, we're not going anywhere with this goal by 2025. So we are going to be asking our Water and Power Authority and Energy Office to work with us to achieve milestones where you will see increased reliability and decreased costs on the near term. We're going to talk about the possibility of expanding the PSC's regulatory power, and that may include monetary fines for WAPA missing deadlines, and that relates again to this. And Senate President Malone has some expertise in the area of the PSC, and he can perhaps talk more about what we could do to strengthen that the PSC's role as an advocate for the people. Right now, they are quick to remind us that they are always balancing between the two, but sometimes it doesn't feel like a balance. When you have hundreds of people living in their homes without electricity and you have dozens of businesses closing, it doesn't feel like there's any balance there. We need to bring that balance back, and we can do it by changing the way the PSC's powers are distributed. The last thing I'd like to say is just that the proceedings were very positive and courteous. There's a lot of tension about this. There are 600 employees of WAPA. Wonder if we make changes to WAPA, what will happen to their jobs? Well, one answer is that we need to have a job for everyone. But another answer is we can't keep doing the same old thing and expecting different results. And so what we're going to do is look at our options, develop our options, and we are going to, hopefully this body the 30th legislature will make some moves that will result in action for you. We are not interested in drama. We had very little drama last Friday. We just had solid communication on a whole host of subjects, and it was almost like a committee of the whole because every senator, save 2, came, many at their own expense who are not committee members from St. Croix. So I'm putting in a plug-in for this 30th legislature, which is being run better by far than recent legislatures, and I think you can look forward to a lot of good things from us. But don't allow it to be all of us alone, because your communication with us through letters, emails, visits to our office, even texts, allow us to continue to represent you well. I'd like to turn it over now to Senate President Malone, who attended an important meeting with the delegate and various high-level government officials in Washington, D.C. last Monday, and I haven't heard his full report, so I, like you, will be listening and learning to what is up in the federal side of things and possible federal assistance. Senator Malone?
And thank you so much, Senator Barshinger. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Virgin Islanders, let me first begin by commending our chairman of the Committee on Energy in the 30th Legislature, Senator Barshinger, Senator at Large, for his work in beginning quickly in bringing to your attention the issue, the number one issue in the Virgin Islands, that's our energy crisis. And the hearing, as you heard, was very productive. I participated in the hearing, and I think the goal of the hearing set out to do two things, which was to, of course, let people know why you're paying so much money for power. And the second is, what are we going to do about it? And I think Senator Barshinger began to lay the groundwork in his committee hearing, having heard from WAPA officials, energy office people, and just regular citizens. And the ideas are coming forward, for example, to amend Act 7075, which is our Alternative Energy Act, that, amongst other things, would expand the kilowatt per hour usage for renewable energy projects or applicants. Right now, it's limited to 100 kilowatts for commercial and 50 kilowatts for residential. And we believe that if we expand this and add the feed-in tariff, then we can immediately see some relief, at least in the commercial sector, for businesses that sell food, for example, and other services that these costs, energy costs and others, are being passed on to you and me. So the Senate can be very productive and effective in passing legislation to make it easier for these commercial sector to have access to cheaper power, right? And so that's one of the things I see Senator Barshinger as one of the solutions that we can do immediately to solve this problem. Hopefully, we can have this done in our first session, scheduled for sometime late March or early April. The meeting in Washington, D.C. is part of this immediate solution. I was invited by the acting, I have to get this right, the acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Interior, Ms. Eileen Sobek, who replaces Mr. Barbuta. Most of you may have been familiar with him. He's been to the Virgin Islands and been right in these chambers addressing the people of the Virgin Islands along with the senators. But she replaces him, and she was kind of up to speed on what was going on with the territory. The governor was present, or Congresswoman Hugo Hodge of WAPA, and Mr. Knight, Carl Knight of the Energy Office, all of us presented very compelling arguments, or say, case, so to speak, to the Department of, this is an interagency group organized by Interior to help the Virgin Islands in this crisis. It comprises of the Department of Energy, Department of Environmental Protection, EPA, USDA, Agricultural Rural Division. We also had the Department of Commerce, who helps raise grants for small businesses in distress. So we had some very key agencies who have existing programs the delegate felt would be helpful to the territory. And through these programs, we are able to probably get some support in the short term, because they're all aware that we have 18 to 24 months out before we see some real savings in LEAC.
Yes.
But we made the case that we just cannot wait 18 months. We need something now. So it looks like WAPA is on track. This is not a guarantee. It's on track to receiving a $30 million grant from rural electric utilities of agriculture. I forget the name of the division, but
rural electrification, maybe.
Right, rural electrification by USDA. That's a division of USDA, and they're working on this grant. They've been working on it for a few weeks now, and so hopefully this will help in increasing efficiency, as Senator Barshinger pointed out. That was one of the key points about why we're paying so much electricity for electricity, because of the bad equipment on at WAPA. If we can get the support to make these generators a lot more efficient, that helps us. So these are some of this amongst the delegates' proposal to have $100 million a grant in a bill that she's introduced on December 7th of 2012 is another opportunity, hopefully, and it's difficult with the sequestration issues in Washington today, but it's still something on the table. But the delegate was made public that she feels hopeful that something can be done within this calendar year to really do something to reduce our energy costs short of the 18 to 24 months that WAPA has continually said to all of us that we will begin to see a reduction in the LEAC. So that's in a nutshell what happened in Washington, but it ties very well into the meeting we had on Friday because it presented opportunity for some short-term solutions. Keep in mind that the legislature, and I think it's important to repeat this often, Senator Barshinger, the Senate has passed 5 major pieces of legislation since the 27th legislature addressing energy. And of course, along the way, we bring amendments, as we are going to do with Act 7075, which is the Renewable Energy Act, which Senator Barshinger had a lot to do with that, to continue bringing about the relief and to, of course, meet the long-term goals of becoming fossil fuel independent as much as possible by 2025. But we have done a lot to work on this issue long before it became a major crisis. And I think it's important to mention that in this discussion. Sometimes people think the Senate does nothing, and but we have done a lot in this area. What we can literally do, we are policymakers, we pass bills, and hopefully the agencies will follow suit. I have to report today that in my presentation in Washington, D.C., as I was going through the legislation to let the federal government know that we have been doing everything possible to reduce our energy costs, and we just can't do anything else right now unless you have cash, right? Everything that I was saying, because Hugo Hodge and Mr. Knight spoke before I did, I could say that almost most of the things that the Senate passed, they're actually doing. So it was refreshing to see that the WAPA, the Energy Office, the legislature, and the executive branch, and our delegate to Congress, because one of those bills was to petition Congress to support some of these initiatives. And by this very meeting we had in Washington, that is clearly what that bill has asked to be done. It's a resolution 1787, I think is the number. It was passed in the 28th legislature, petitioning Congress to do this and do that regarding our energy crisis. One of the issues they talked about we passed was when Hovensa was operating at the time, which is now obsolete, that a portion of what they paid to the Transportation Trust Fund in the States, we would get a piece of that back. But obviously that's not an issue now since they're no longer quote unquote in operation. So that piece of the resolution is not being complied with, obviously, but all the others are in getting whatever resources the federal government has to assist the territory, and the delegate has pursued that, or is pursuing that. So, Senator Barshinger, I have to say that all of our elected officials are working together on this issue. And I think it's good to make it known that unlike what's going on in Washington, D.C., the Virgin Islands, we have some cooperation between the branches and our delegate to Congress and our federal partners and our semi-autonomous agencies to work on this issue. And so I think Senator Barshinger would agree that he'll be giving some updates, as we move forward with this issue. The Senate in general will do it. We think it's important to communicate to you the need to stay current and update you on what we're doing on your behalf to try to ease this burden.
Thank you, Senate President Malone. That is really good news to know we have a partner in Washington who can help us as we do the right thing locally. We can get some assistance from Washington. The technical assistance from the Eden program has been useful, and just the fact that they're there watching us, and perhaps $30 million would be a huge amount of money in order to make up for the maintenance problems and the old equipment problems that we've had at WAPA. I want to let everyone know that there are things you can do today, right now, as we work on these policy level issues. Don't feel that there's not something you can do, and I'm going to list them for you right now. First of all, you can call the VI Energy Office or WAPA. They will help you, especially the VI Energy Office. They will help you look at your energy usage and figure out how to lower it. If you are a person with low income, we have weatherization assistance money that can actually result in your being gifted by the federal government's money and the local VI Energy offices' efforts with appliances that are much more efficient. So go ahead, take advantage of that. We have a program for you. Another thing that everyone can do is monitor your meter. It takes so little trouble. Put a pad and a pen near your door, and every morning either you or maybe some of your children will have the responsibility of going out at the same time every day. Just read your meter and mark it down. 31 lines ought to do it, and then you'll know what your meter was every day. Why should you do this? Because when your WAPA bill comes, it says what your meter reading was and what the date and time of reading was. You can cross-check it. If WAPA doesn't read your meter and they misestimate your reading, for instance, they might charge you a whole lot more that you couldn't really afford to pay. But if you have a fact in front of you that you have actually been reading your meter, then you will be able to say, no, I'm not going to pay that amount on the bill because my meter reading was really this. So that's something everybody can do. And it's not a lot of effort, and it puts you in touch with your meter reading. And if you see that your meter goes way up between 2 days, you can ask the family members, what's going on here? What did we do to make our meter spin so much during the night? Puts you back in the driver's seat. The other thing you can do is to go to visenate.org under the downloads and get the sheet that's available, and it's called the electricity worksheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can either fill out online, or you can print it out if you're old-fashioned, and you simply fill it out according to the instructions. My office on St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix stands ready to help you fill this out. But all you really have to do is fill out one line for every electricity-using item in your home, and what it will do is it will calculate, using a spreadsheet, how many kilowatt hours you should be using. If your WAPA bill says that's about what you're using, well then, you can look at the sheet and say, what could we cut back on? But let's say your WAPA bill is twice what you should be using. Now you've discovered that you may have a leak. Just as a leaky cistern could allow your water to leak away into ground, so too can an electrical system have faults that causes you to pay for electricity that you're not getting any benefit from. The only way you'll know is to do an audit with your electricity worksheet. So consider doing that. There are many things you can do right now while we, your legislature, work in order to make sure that, the policies will guide us to an energy future with lower costs and increased reliability. Thank you so much for following us here on Legit TV as we implement the President's vision to make it a full one-stop source for information about your legislative branch and your government in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you.